Hi everyone, my name is Jean-Christophe. In this beginner Python tutorial, we will talk about the Python if, elif, else control flow statement. So in Python, the if, elif, else statements are called control flow statements. They are used to apply condition to your code. So you can say if a condition is met, do something, else do something else. They are used as a sequence, so if the if, elif, else, it goes in this order, and you can add as many elif statement in the middle. They are not all required. The only required keyword is the if keyword. So you start with the if keyword, and then elif and else is not required in your code. The if statement is the one that is used to check if the first condition is met. So you go with this structure. So if the condition is met, then what code should be executed? So the simple example of an if statement is if something is true, then print this is true. In this case, if you run this, it will always be true because is if true, run this is true. In the opposition, if you say if false and you run this, nothing will happen because the statement is not true. One thing to bear in mind with the if block is like any block in Python, you need the indentation. So if you say if true and then you say print hello and you don't put that indentation, then you'll end up with an indentation error. So if you want to run this normally, you need always to put the indentation at first of the block. The else statement is used to define code execution if none of the conditions above is met. It is an optional statement, such as what we've seen. We didn't define the else statement earlier, and it goes like this. You put the if a condition, do something, and then with the else keyword, you don't need to put any condition. You just say if any of the condition is met, do something else. So the simplest else example we could say is if I is equal 12, and then we say if I is less than 10, print I is less than 10, else print I is greater than 10. If you run this, then you'll see that the condition here was not met, so it went to the else statement and printed the else statement. We can move on to the third keyword in the control flow, if else, and if is the elif statement. The elif statement is used between the if and the else statement to add other conditions to be matched. Example of the elif statement is by starting with I equal 12. We can say if I is less than 2, you could print I is less than 2. And then you use the elif statement to add a new condition. You could say I is greater than 10. And if it is not met, you can print something else. Else, then you could say that the condition is not met. Print not met. And if you run this, you'll see that what the programming is doing is that it will loop through it will go through each line. It will start with the first if statement, look if the condition here is met, and then if it was met, it would be printing print I is less than 2. But since it was not met, it went to the next statement, which was the elif statement. And then the code found that the condition was met, so they decided to print I is greater than 10. If else statement also support logical conditions, so you can say if something is equal to something else, if it's not equal, less than, or whatever other logical conditions are listed here. So one example you could say is if 10 is not equal to 2, so in that case, that 10 is not equal to 2, so this is true, then you can print they are not equal. If else statement also support and or, so you can add multiple condition to a use case. So they are used to combine conditional statement. So you could say A equal 10, B equal 1, and C equal 100, for example. And then you could look at if statement and you could use the and keyword, and any chaining of and keyword needs all to be met in order to be true. So you could say if A is greater than B, so 10 is greater than 1, so this is true, and A is less than C, So both conditions should be true for this to run. So in this case, 10 is greater than 1 and 10 is smaller than 100. So what we should print here is that both condition was met. So here print A is greater than B and smaller than C. So in the example we just seen, both condition needs to be met in order for the program to print the statement. But you can make sure that it looks at multiple statements, and as long as at least one of the condition is true, then it would return the program. And when you want to do this, you use the OR keyword. So for example, you can have A equals 0 and B equal 10. And you could put it if A equals 0, so that means if A equals 0, so this condition is true, or A is greater than B. And in this case, A is not greater than B. 0 is not greater than B. So if we try to run, let's say print A is either 0 or greater than B. If we run this, it will print it. If it would have been an AND statement, nothing would have happened because both conditions should be true. So when you use the OR keyword, then as long as one of the condition is true, it will be printed. You can also use the not operator to reverse the conditional statement. And here I already pre-written this one, but essentially you have I equal 10, and if not I is equal 10, it prints I is not equal 10, otherwise it would print it is equal 10. If we run this, we can see that the behavior of the not I 1 equal 10 is exactly the same behavior as if I would have written like this. The same thing would have happened, is only that one is looking at the if two conditions are equal, and the other is just reversing whatever you're asking. Then you can use the in keywords with the if conditional statement. So the in keyword is used in two contexts in Python. One, it is used in an if conditional to check if the value is present in a sequence, or it is used in a for loop to iterate through a sequence. Here we'll focus on that first use case of the conditional because we're in the if else tutorial. So when I want to check if a value is present in a sequence, so right now I have this list, I want to know if the number 1 is present in that list, I could look at if I in ls, then print I is present in the list. So this is the use of the in statement, that it looks if that value is inside the sequence. You can also create nested if statements, so you can check if one condition is true, and inside that condition search for another one. So let's say I have a string here and I can say hello, and I want to look if is instance s string. So essentially I'm looking, I just want to evaluate this string if it is a string. So I'm looking if the variable s is a string, and if it is a string, then I can say if e in s, print s. So I just want to print the string if the letter e, if first the I just want to print this variable if the variable is a string and if the letter E is inside the string. So in this case, both conditions are met, so it will print hello. So you can dive as deep as you want. You can create as many nested ifs as you want inside code, but at some point it becomes hard to read. And even there is one of the condition in the Zen of Python that say flat is better than nested, so you don't want to go too deep inside your code. And even some Pythonist people are just converting everything into a single line if else statement, and this is what I'll show you right now. A single line if statement means that you're deleting the new line and the indentation. So the code is exactly the same, but it uses only one line instead of using two. So I have this code right now that is a simple if statement that we just looked, and how you convert this into a single line, that's super easy. You just backspace, backspace, and then it becomes a single line, and the code still writes. I just deleted the indentation and the new line character and becomes a single line. This single line statement, however, needs to have only one piece of code executed. So if I would say here print another thing like hello, then that doesn't work anymore. You cannot just compile a lot of code one after the other. You will throw a syntax error. When you want to do a single line if else statement, then you're not just doing a single line if, you use ternary operators. So the way ternary operators work in Python is that it looks if a value is true and then it say if condition else false. So it kind of switch over the logic here, but to create a multi-line if else, then you would simply do as what we just seen and we would run this. If you want to reproduce exactly this kind of logic, but as a single line instead, you would need to define the value that is true if condition else. So you take this and you start, okay, what to do if the value here is true. So you bring that over here at first. So you start to with what to do if the condition is true, and then you put your else statement and you break everything off. So you have value if true, if condition, else, print something else, and then you just created a one-liner ternary operator in Python. One thing is that the Python if else statement cannot be empty. So you can say if true, and you cannot just run this. Otherwise, you end up with the syntax error. In this case, if you don't want to do it right straight away, what you can do is you say if true, pass. And you don't want to work with the code right now, so you use the pass control flow statement. So this is it. We've covered everything we need to know about the if-else statement. Help me and subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for my upcoming Python for SEO course that you can look for the link in the description below to subscribe to be the first to know when it's out. Thank you very much. See you in the next tutorial.